I see dead people.
Hot shit.
Here's Johnny.
Stop.
We have such sights to show you.
Bring the motherfucking ruckus. Fuck you too.
Okay. Oh fuck.
Oh wow. There goes my Chicago deep dish bit. It's gone forever.
You want to do it again?
we be recording over me.
You want to do it again?
No, the people don't ever get to know this.
Is a Chicago deep dish a pizza?
Or a casserole? Is it? Tell us in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe to more Johnny Yins. Whatever.
Yeah, we could go there. We could go there if you want to go there.
I mean, whenever I kiss a girl, I usually go to jail.
Whoa.
Just kidding.
So you're not allowed to make those jokes. You're now officially a legal teacher in Pennsylvania.
It's okay. It's okay to just make the kissing noise. You know. I get in the class. All right, kids. Let's all get in our kissing stations. You can't say that. You can't.
I'm gonna go back to singing "Give Me Pizza." P-I-Z-Z-A.
Nobody has
Give
any
me
idea what is happening right now.
pizza.
We have had technical issues, and
We've
they
tried
all
recording
revolve-
this episode like 3 times at this point, and it's run into issues every time we've tried. So we're now just delirious past the point of sanity now that we're actually recording. So I hope everyone's gonna really enjoy this episode, I'm sure.
They already skipped it.
All right, so on the next episode of Lotsa Pasta,
They're not even here.
they're just going to be here for the conclusion of the detective story.
To be
There's
fair.
no setup.
That's the best way to go. You should listen to the last detective episodes that we have together and start from the back end.
Start from the back end. Start from getting the answer.
Because then it'll get good at the end.
And then figuring out the problem after the fact.
I was once a cop.
Nope, that's not how it ended.
And I had a mop.
It ended with aliens.
Do you want to have some chopsticks?
And then it ended with, I might be insane.
I feel like there was a weird Trump reference in there, too. About
Oh, yeah,
a
Trump is the
politician being
Antichrist.
the devil, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, fair. Honestly, it's not the hottest take we've had on the
I
show.
love the Shane Gillis bit lately where, like, he's, like, talking about, like, the debates. And he's like, let's, like, not tell anyone that he's going to be there.
And then just have
like,
him come.
The stone cold glass breaks and he comes in. They're both gay.
Just so that they can start arguing.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, no, you put anyone up there, it's easy because you put Biden up there and he's the kryptonite to Trump because he just
Doesn't know what the fuck
he
he's
doesn't
saying.
know what's going on. It's the only reason he won, because Trump couldn't make him look any stupider. And I am pro Biden saying that. That's fine. He's old. He's sleepy. That's fine. That's why I voted for him, honestly. I'm both of those things. I'm old
I'm
and
old
sleepy.
and sleepy. These are the qualities that
These
I
are the
want.
qualities
in
I
a
look
leader.
for in a leader. Orange, loud, annoying? Nah.
That's
Don't
not
relate
for
to
me.
don't relate to any of
I'm,
that.
I'm not a big Wonka guy. I'm not seeing the new movie.
Nah, me neither. What do you want to start talking about what we did the other night?
Yeah, we were naked. We were in a
A
pool.
little bit of dip minus the skinny.
Extra dip. 2 number 45s.
Extra dip minus the skinny is what we're calling it.
We saw Night Swim.
We went and saw Night Swim.
Yay.
This is going to come out like 6 months from now, so it's not going to be relevant. But
Everybody loves January horror movies.
fuck you, it's January.
It's the best time of year to see the worst horror movies.
If you were wondering in January what it would be like to have a haunted pool, guess what? Answers were given, answers were solved, things were provided.
I didn't hate it.
I didn't hate it either. I don't when it comes to stupid
Premises.
horror movies, it takes a lot for me to hate them, to get like actually worked up, negative emotions, like, you know, leaving the theater just go oh, just like pissed off. No, like, that's me, you know, after watching a Star Wars movie. That's not me after watching, you know, a shitty horror movie. So we have
Halloween ends.
and let me say, after the fact, I think I realized it is the first in a combined effort of Blumhouse and James Wan.
It was a good
So
combination.
after realizing that, I went back and I said, you know what that reminded me of? Malignant.
Ah, you like Malignant.
I did like Malignant. It made me laugh. It's
That was a
not
stupid premise
it's
to me.
not good, and it's just as stupid, if not more stupid than Night Swim. That's an argument I would make one day.
I think the
I
problem.
think
with,
Malignant is probably more stupid.
Yeah, I think the problem with Malignant was I really liked the trailer, and then the movie was just the complete opposite of the trailer, at least to me, if I remember correctly. But that was a few years ago.
See, I even watched the trailer and I was like, this is dumb. And then I went and I saw it and I was like, this is dumb. And I had a big smile on my face when I said that. So with James Wan, you know, collaborating and Blumhouse producing, you come to the fork in the road. Is this going to be well thought out, or is this going to be spineless, you know? And when you're seeing a movie called Night Swim, I think you know what you're getting into. And my favorite line in the movie is the mom looks at someone and says, "Are you telling me my pool is haunted?" And that's when you know.
I just love the fact that you always have the realtor that, like, didn't disclose the full information because they knew it would scare you away, even though
That's
it's
the twist.
literally illegal to do such things.
Yeah, but you know, there goes her realty business.
Without spoilers, I like the fact that
spoil.
they come up right away. We get this like pool technician guy when they first move in there because
He's like,
it's
"Oh,
like
fuck,
decrepit
yeah.
and old. He's like, oh my god, this is
Oh,
a
yeah.
natural well pool.
This is
Do
pure
you
well water, baby. There are myths that go back. They say that these natural springs have unnatural healing properties. Helps with your skin, helps with your health, helps with your muscles and your, you know, your hair and your bones, and you know, you're gonna love this shit. Oh fuck.
And Papa of the family, of course, is a former pro baseball player who
With
got
MS.
diagnosed with MS, got a pretty rotten hip, and he hears this pool geek talk about this, and he's like, oh.
It's like, I told you we bought the right place, honey. Played wonderfully by Wyatt Russell.
I'm gonna be rehabbing.
He is the reason I saw this movie. If he was not in it, I probably would not have seen it. I love Wyatt Russell. I support almost everything he's in. I actually watched his episode of Black Mirror without knowing that it was Kurt Russell's kid before watching it, and then I found out he was coming out in Overlord, which I fucking loved.
Amazing movie.
And then when he got cast as John for U.S. agent for Falcon and Captain America, Falcon Winter Soldier, I was ecstatic because he's fantastic in that show.
Seeing him without a beard is just upsetting. Man grows a great beard.
Man grows a great beard, but
Just like his papa.
but looks like his dad when
Yeah.
when he's shaved. It's crazy.
Just needs a little longer hair. Thing 3. More thingy.
I think the more interesting thing to me is, like, why wouldn't Ryan Johnson just wait like 10 years and then redo Looper with Kurt Russell and Wyatt Russell? You know?
That's a good idea.
How much of a better movie that would have been with the two of them?
I didn't hate Looper, though. I thought Gordon Green did it alright.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Gordon-Levitt.
It's not that he didn't do a good job, it's that he and Bruce Willis are nothing alike.
Well, so they made him look completely different in that movie.
Yeah, and it didn't work. I'm saying that as someone who loves that movie. It's just you contextually need a father-son duo to sell that shit, and there aren't many of them, you know, that could pull that shit off. Like,
What about Clint Eastwood and his son?
Yeah. I was thinking Dennis and Jack Quaid.
Yeah.
You know.
I think...
No, wouldn't have worked.
I think you hit
but
the nail on the head with the Russells. Yeah, that would have been a fun one.
I'm not saying it would have worked. I'm just saying think of father-son duos in the industry. You don't have many of them. Like, even Jude Law's kid came out recently and said, I'm going to start acting. And I'm just like, good fucking luck. You know, you look nothing like your dad. You're you know, and you're just trying to nepo this shit. So, like, good luck. No, so I went and I've been trying to get someone to fucking see Night Swim with me for weeks. My girlfriend absolutely refused, and I kept asking other people, and naturally I asked Deputy Dewey here because he went and saw Thanksgiving with me. Or Thanksgiving. I want to call it Thanksgiving because it's a great title, but it was actually just Thanksgiving.
I love my slashers.
And
Called the bad guy.
And we went and saw the Haunted Pool movie, and we had the theater to ourselves. Except for like the first 15 minutes, a couple came in, they got handsy in the back row and left after he came, probably.
They heard us gooning in the front.
They heard us gooning,
we can't
docking,
keep up with these guys.
and jelking in the front row, and they left. Which is fine, because we talked throughout the entire movie.
The floating heads.
And had a really good time just shooting the shit, watching the movie. It doesn't quite go the places I wanted it to go. I thought it would be simple if the concept was just an evil pool. You know, let's go back to the 80s and just make something evil. It made me think of Stephen King a lot. I was like, Christine, evil car. Like, no repercussions. Like The Shining, evil hotel.
I was so worried.
Cujo, evil dog.
I was so worried that the fucking pool was just like put over like an Indian burial ground or some stupid shit.
No, I don't think it was ever going to be that contrived. I just thought, do they ever really describe it? Other than the fact that it's a magical well.
Yeah, it's just a wishing well, basically.
Yeah, but, you know, here's the funny thing about old school fairy tales. I don't remember them fucking murdering people.
you have to give a sacrifice to the well to get your wish.
So, I mean, you flip a coin, though.
Yeah.
I give a fucking quarter, and maybe my wish gets granted. You know, in Snow White, she's not putting the fucking dwarves down there.
I feel like it's
singing to get the prince.
I like it, though. It's like that old conundrum of, like...
Monkey's paw.
Yeah, you get a wish, but, like, somebody out there dies that you don't know.
The button.
Do you do it? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably. We're terrible people. Welcome to the show. It's episode 272. If you haven't figured this out, why the fuck are you listening?
I only start after 272 episodes.
Whoa. You're late
I'm
bloomer.
finally going to listen to an episode of our podcast.
Late gooner. So we watched Night Swim. The pool turns out to be a magical wishing well that requires sacrifice.
But, like, it still lives in the people that it helps. Because there's, like, a black smoke monster, like in Lost, that gets involved.
Yeah.
And it just sucks into these people. Captain Death happened to fall asleep during some of
Crazy
these
Asian
vital
lady.
moments.
Crazy Asian lady was a fun sequence where you could tell the water was still kind of inside her.
My boy's in Washington.
For what she wished for.
He does great work.
Yeah, I bet he does.
We don't speak about my dead daughter.
Saying you killed your daughter, though.
It needed to happen from my boy. He's
What
in
are
Washington.
you doing with my
know?
daughter? We get to the end where the dad, Wyatt, is kind of possessed and he's running around. He's trying to sacrifice someone to the pool. It's fine, you know. A little bit of that possession, John, going on.
Till the very end.
The mom goes into some insidious, you know, underworld realm to get the son back, and you know the little girl from the beginning helps her find him, being its most recent victim. I don't think she's decomposed. She hasn't been, you know, eaten by the well enough that she still has some light in her and is able to help out. They're able to save the kid. They get the kid out of there. The kid won't wake up. You know, he's under the same trance, and it's now a game of give or take between the dad and the son. Who is the pool gonna claim? And you know, we were wondering up until that point, how did they get Wyatt Russell to be in this movie? And you know, you get it with the finale, which is the heroic sacrifice. The dad goes into the pool, turns around, he's just like, "Don't look back," just keep on swimming. He counts. He does he Finding Nemo quote, and then he swims into the pool and kills himself, just disappears.
It's just so not earned.
Yeah, no, but you can tell.
The antagonist most of the movie.
I mean, I wouldn't say antagonist. I would say misunderstood, problematic family member. But his heart's in the right place, and it's the obvious sacrifice. It's the obvious message. They fill the pool, at the end with dirt, and so that it can't claim even more souls. But we're gonna get a cheap sequel 15 years from now where they dig that pool out and they keep on sacrificing, and it's gonna be fine. The actual best line from the movie is when the dad is stalking around the house trying to find the daughter, who we know was playing Marco Polo with a guy she has a crush on earlier in the movie. And when the dad finds her with a jump scare, he yells, "You're supposed to say Polo." And it was one of the funnier things I've seen Wyatt Russell just yell at a little girl. So
there's a point where the girl is talking about kissing her crush to these other girls, and the guy's like right there.
That's smart. You don't do that?
I'm a 14-year-old teenager. I could hear everything that you're saying.
I want the podcast to know that there are sometimes I think about kissing Deputy Oh, you're right here on the couch with me. Awkward.
Luckily, I am a 32-year-old man that's been to many concerts. I didn't hear a word that he just said. Everything's just buzzing.
Everything's just buzzing.
It's just always buzzing.
I don't hear anything, actually.
I actually feel terrible as a teacher these days because these kids will say something. I'll be like, "What?"
Yeah, we've gotten to the age of the
It's just, I feel bad because it's always the shy kids that just have very
the mumble
small voices and they don't want to speak up, but they need to.
Yeah. You need to project.
Yeah. You need to come into my night pool from my night swim.
Whoa.
At my house.
You can't ask them to do that.
Come on down.
You should be worried about putting that out there on audio.
It's okay. I already used my wishing well, so somebody out there died, so I get to have a child come over to my house.
Oh no! Oh no!
Scot-free, baby.
All right.
I have an island. It's called Epstein.
Whoa, that's what it's called?
Yeah. I'll get a boat one day and I'll name it the Not Epstein.
That's awful.
Why
would you do that?
Because of the implication.
Oh, the implication. We're here to read more stories because I was disappointed by the last series we read. It happens.
It does.
It happens. We start off with the best of intentions, but I don't vet any of this material, so sometimes you just get stuck with a stinker.
You gotta be surprised if you know all the information. It won't be
part
as fun.
1 was cool.
Yeah.
Part 2 was a downhill slope, and part 3 fucking sucked.
Part 1 had all the spooky ghost stuff.
Yeah, I know.
And then it just went away.
Ghost kids.
I love ghost kids.
Ghost kids are great. You can do a lot with ghost kids. Are they vengeful? Are they metaphorical? Are they just kind of guidance? Are they benevolent spirits?
Are they actually demons the whole
Are
time?
was demons? Call in Where Am I for some support there. Yeah, there's a lot you could do with dead kids, and I think they established that the water company, absolutely was burying the secrets of these dead kids. The energy was flowing, and next thing you know, we're in an insane asylum, and we got One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Nobody believes me.
Yeah. And then they shut down the hospital at the end, and they get the doctor arrested.
Cured.
Yeah. Except he got transferred to a different facility to do a new run to see if he was safe to go back out. And that's when he ran into an owl alien.
Yeah.
that warned him about Trump's election
all
in
knowing.
2016.
You must stop it.
Yeah, I hated that. So we're gonna get back into the cop procedural drama because it's Deputy Dewey. He's on the couch. We gotta deputize him. We gotta figure it out. And
Gotta be on the case.
I found a story about a kid who's talking to his grandpa, and his grandpa is a retired detective.
Papa, can you hear me?
And I think the places that can go is fun because I like to bring up Pancake Family a lot, and I really feel like I sold that episode because I got to do the noir detective who's like a couple years too old. He's getting too old for this shit. You know, he wants to clear that last case that's stuck on his mind for the last 20, 30 years, and he the night he decides to quit is the night he meets the Pancake Family, and that's when he decides, like, I'm just not for this game anymore. But also, so is Where Am I? Fun fact about that story, I'm sure I've told on another episode of the show in between the 100 episodes that it's been. I started that story, and Where Am I got so grossed out while we were reading it that he actually left.
It's incredible.
He not only left the room, he left my house and drove home and refused to finish the story with me.
Done with you.
And I just kind of recorded an outro with him real quick, and we acted like the story was over. And then really I went back and I read the rest of it, and then I just realigned, reoriented the tense of those footage.
The wonders of editing.
Yeah, the wonders of editing. It makes it sound like he's there because I had him record some lines. So I don't ask for any input, but his voice comes in to read the lines of the other people. So it sounds like he's there the entire time, but he's not. And it's really funny because you can go back and listen, and you'd assume that he's there just based off of, it's the same quality of any of our other episodes. You have no reason to believe he's not there, but I'm telling you for a fact, he was grossed out by that story, and he actually fucking left.
I'll never leave.
Yeah, no, you're actually physically stuck.
You will stab me and I will bleed out on this podcast, but I will still talk and banter, and you will know that I am here.
I was just going to say that you actually are stuck here on the couch with me.
Just because I enjoy being handcuffed to weird places doesn't mean we have to bring that up.
Yeah, that's right. Don't fucking talk about the handcuffs.
Is deep dish a pizza or casserole?
We're back to this again.
It always comes back. I hope these guys are from Chicago.
Chicago. We're gonna figure it out. But is there anything you wanted to say or talk about before we get into the story here?
No, I'll just start reading. If the Yeti isn't showing up when connecting to your computer, reconnect the mic by unplugging and plugging it back in. Oh, that's scary. Tech problems are scary.
I'll say that's a real world creepypasta right there. When the podcast can't podcast.
A podcast can't podcast on the podcast. Night swim.
Don't just say night swim. All right.
Let's get your review of Night Swim. It's Night Swim.
It is swimming at night, for sure. That happens. So, we're done talking about that. The title of the story that we are going to read here today is called My Grandpa, a Retired Homicide Detective, just told me the case that still keeps him up at night. Which sounds like Where Am I? Because he left that one time we were reading the story together. And I heard that it keeps him up at night.
My grandpa, retired podcaster, just told me the case that keeps him up at night.
That should have been the story. Do you want to start?
Sure.
Go for it.
I've heard a lot of stories from my grandfather. He was a detective for 27 years of his life, and I grew up listening to the tales of he and his fellow lawmen. As a child, he obviously amended the stories quite a bit to make them age appropriate.
Kept out all the fucks and the racism.
Oh. That's not fun.
The fucks and the racism.
I love that stuff. But as I grew up, more and more, the true stories came out with all the fucks and the racism.
And the racism, for sure.
Starting about 2 years ago, my grandpa got sick. He's been on a slow decline ever since, and while it's been one of the hardest things I've ever had to deal with, his illness acted as the catalyst for a set of stories he'd never before brought up. He said he kept them filed away deep in the folder he doesn't like to open. He calls them the impossible ones.
I like that. You know, like the X-Files.
Mm-hmm.
It's the stories that don't make any fucking sense.
Too insane to make sense.
To like a logical person who's been doing the job for over 20 years. He has a collection of stories where he's sat back and he's just like,
What was that like? That was just in the sky in the 1970s. There wasn't drones back then. What was it? It just moved around.
I found a body with no bones.
No bones.
And yet, not a single scar on his body.
And they weren't even connected ass to mouth.
And they weren't even piled on top of each other on a plate with syrup.
Is pancakes a casserole or a pizza? But the last one, the one he told me last night, he says it's the one that still keeps him up some nights. The one he thinks about every day. He said he's looked over the case files more times than he can remember. Done a full re-examination of it all more times than he can remember. And it never makes any more sense. He said he only told me now because he can feel in his bones that he doesn't have a lot of time left.
Bones.
Them bones. I'm gonna hear about some bones. See, this isn't
What if we
pancakes.
don't?
No pancakes.
What if we don't?
Hashtag no pancakes, hashtag all the bones.
What about hashtag no bones?
I'll be so sad. I recorded him telling me the story. So what follows is my transcription of the case. Verbatim. I've only excluded his coughing fits and any off-topic remarks made during the telling of the case. All the racism was taken out. All the off-topic racism.
The case was a murder kidnapping. At least, that's what it looked like. And it was me and Olsen. I told you about him.
Mary Kate, yeah.
Yeah, those twins. Those succulent twins.
Oh, Elizabeth.
There was a family. The Nebels. There was Benjamin, the husband, Jennifer,
My wife.
and Katie, their 6-year-old daughter. What? Stop it. One of their neighbors had gone out for the paper around 6 a.m. and saw the Nebels' front door wide open. When she went over to see if everything was okay, she saw the wife's body.
Oh, no.
The neighbor called 911 and eventually we were sent over. Now when I say there was no outward signs of a struggle, I mean it. There was no sign whatsoever that anything had happened, well, except for the dead body.
How'd that get there?
But even her body, there were no wounds, no marks of any kind. I'm getting ahead of myself. On our way to the house, it came over the radio that the husband and daughter were unaccounted for. If you're thinking the husband did it, we did too, obviously.
Good detective work.
Problem was, both the family's cars were still in the garage, so we think they might be on foot. Some officers canvassed the neighborhood, and no one had seen them, including 2 neighbors that were on their porches 4 hours starting in the early morning. No one had heard any kind of commotion coming from the house either. I mentioned the wife's body. She didn't have a hair out of place. It's like I said. She was on her back in the kitchen. About 1/3 of her upper body was under the table. We found out after the autopsy that, well, she just died. There was no cause that they could find. She'd been a perfectly healthy woman, didn't smoke, didn't drink, ate right, exercised. It was like she just blinked her eyes and gone from alive to dead.
Cause of death, death.
Anyways, we searched the house, went through, fine-tooth comb, basement to attic, found nothing. No evidence of a struggle, no weapon, nothing. So we left. We'd spent hours in that house, thought maybe we should come back in a day or two with some fresh eyes. We went over to where Benjamin worked. He was a supervisor at a lumber yard. According to his co-workers, he'd shown up at work that morning just before 5 a.m. When he got in, he worked on this narrow crate thing he was building in his office, something he told his co-workers was a project for his house.
Oh.
According to the other morning supervisor, he'd only built about half of the thing. Around 6:15, he said he was running to the bathroom, and that was the last anyone saw of him. They never saw him leave. While we were at the lumber yard, I realized I'd left my notes at the house. We drove back over there, and we got there while they were taking the wife's body away. As soon as we walked in, the stench hit us like a bus. It was what a newly discovered but long dead body smells like. We knew it obviously couldn't have been the wife. We asked a few of the officers and forensic folks that were still at the house what the smell was, and they told us that it had only started a few minutes before we'd gotten back there. I'm not exaggerating when I say the smell was everywhere in the house. I've smelled some dead ones before, but this smelled like every wall in the place was lined with corpses. Pretty quickly, we found that the smell was strongest leading up to the attic. Now, I told you before, we checked the attic. I checked it myself probably 5 times. But we went back up, me and Olson. Ain't that right, Olson?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm going up there with you now.
I was up the little pull-down ladder first, and when I poked my head up, I saw something. I saw a piece of wood, like a box, like a crate. It was shaped kind of like a rifle case, maybe 3 feet tall, 2 feet wide, 6 inches deep, rectangular. It was standing straight up, and there was blood leaking from it. We called the photographers and all the people in there. They all do their thing, and finally, they all pull out the nails and open the box. And out falls the husband. Think about that. This guy was maybe 5'10", 140 pounds, and he was put in a 3 foot by 2 foot by 6 inch crate. His bones were...
Woo! Bones!
Bones.
Bones! Let's go!
They're just a mess. His insides, all his organs, they were flattened.
Best of both worlds. We get bones, we get pancakes.
Flattened like a pancake. They was just wet, squishy pieces of fabric almost. He was stuffed in there like, I don't know what like. It was just a rectangle of blood and skin and parts. His skin had this discoloration of a body that had been dead for about 2 weeks, which obviously didn't make sense since they'd seen him at work that morning. He was also missing his eyeballs. We were standing there trying to rationalize the whole situation when something caught everyone's ears at the same time. A little girl's voice calling out for help.
Help.
Thank you. What followed was a sequence of all the people in the attic and the rest of the house and the people out on the lawn and the few that was standing on the other side of the yellow tape, all saying some variation of the phrase, "It sounds like it's coming from over there." Problem was, every single person swore they heard it coming from a different direction.
I'm over here.
Me, I heard it from right above me.
I'm right up here.
No kidding.
I'm not kidding.
The first time I heard that little voice say,
"Help me,"
I looked straight up, right up to the rafters. Of course, she wasn't there.
Oh, I'm not here now.
It was just my brain's response to where it perceived her voice to be coming from. We had to listen to every one of these people tell us where they thought they heard the voice coming from. People swore up and down they heard it coming from the kitchen cabinets, the bedroom closets, the refrigerator, the tank behind the toilet, for God's sake. People on the street said they heard it from underneath cars, behind trees, on the sides of the houses next to the Nebbles. Everyone heard her voice for about a minute and a half, 2 minutes tops, and then it stopped. About 2 weeks after that day, the wife's sister had a funeral for Jennifer. It went fine. They buried her. All that. The husband's remains were cremated not long after that and put on display in a different part of the cemetery. I don't exactly remember when it happened, but at some point over the few weeks after he was cremated, someone stole the urn. It was missing for about 6 months, and then one day we get a call, find out a groundskeeper at the cemetery had called in. The wife had been dug up, posed like she was leaning against the grave, just relaxing. She had the urn in her hands, but it was wrapped in skin. Well, they tested it, and it was the husband's skin.
Interesting.
They'd pretty well reconstructed the man after he poured out the crate, and he hadn't been missing any skin. And remember, I told you his skin was discolored. Well, this skin was perfectly preserved. And inside the urn, well, with his ashes, there were 3 eyeballs. Only one of them was the husband's. It's been, what, 22 years? I still hear that girl's voice calling out sometimes. And I don't mean my memory or mind is playing tricks on me. Ask your grandmother. She's heard her. The same 6-year-old voice. And then I remember it was May 12th, 2007. I was going to pick up a pizza. I saw the girl. I saw Katie Nebel. And I don't mean I saw her grown up. I don't mean I saw a little girl that looked like her when she was young. I mean, I saw that fucking kid. She was standing outside the Walgreens right by our old house, crying. I pulled over and got out of the car, and I started to walk up to her. I can't explain how I felt in that moment. I was nauseous. I was so afraid. Terrified. More than I've ever been. She looked right at me and said it in that same voice.
Help me, please.
I don't know what the hell happened, but she just disappeared. I never took my eyes off her. She was just there 1 second, gone the next. I thought I was losing my goddamn mind. I was seriously worried about myself, my mental health. But then, about an hour after I got back home, the phone rang. It was Olson.
It was me, Olson.
Hadn't talked to the son of a bitch in 5 years. He called me that night. Said he saw Katie Nebel sitting on a bus stop bench crying. He lived on the other side of the country. Killed himself the next day.
Shit. There's never a good ending to these stories. I know. If there was, they wouldn't be the impossible ones. I'd have figured them out one way or the other. And I know I've told you some other stories, but that girl's voice still wakes me up in the middle of the night. Sometimes I hear it from downstairs, sometimes from the bathroom. Sometimes I'll be lying on my side, facing away from your grandmother. It sounds like it's coming from her mouth.
Oh no.
We never found a trace of that girl, nothing. I told you what they do with those cases. God damn it, I'm sorry. That's it. That's the worst one. Some of the other ones might sound worse to you, but that's the worst for me. Okay? He told me he didn't want to talk about it anymore, and said now that he told me he'd never talk about it again.
Oh, that's good. I liked that.
Who were the other eyeballs?
They only said one of them was the husband's.
I know, but I'm just intrigued. Was one the mama's? Was one the child's? Were they both the child's?
So the kid's disappearing and reappearing. The dad is in a fucking box and the mom just drops dead one day. Yeah, no, I literally can't wrap my head around that.
And the skin has been different too, so kind of talking about time travel a little bit.
Displacement, teleportation.
That really sucks that you're just fucking continuously traveling through time.
Some interstellar shit.
Yeah.
Part 2. My grandpa, a retired homicide detective, just told me another case he can't wrap his head around. I told my grandpa about the response he got from his case I posted last week, and he was thrilled. I mean, nightmarishly thrilled. Going through your comments together put a smile on his face, and then a nightmare in his brain. Like I haven't seen in some time. He saw that so many people wanted to hear more of his impossible ones, and he encouraged me to transcribe more of the cases he told me about, in addition to agreeing to tell me more and answer any questions you have, so here we go!
Back before me and Olson were partners and he was dead,
He killed himself.
I was with this guy, Manth.
Manth.
He was a weird son of a bitch,
It was a woman.
but he was good at the job. He, she, they.
It.
Zeezers. He'd been out on about a decade longer than me, and he taught me quite a bit. As a matter of fact,
Tell me about them stairs in the woods.
he's the one that told me that there would be times when I wouldn't be able to solve the case. He said it wouldn't be because of me or a lack of skill or anything like that. Wouldn't be the evidence, wouldn't be the witnesses. He said there'd be times when... how'd he put it?
You'd have all the pieces of the puzzle, you know, what the puzzle should look like, but for a reason you don't know and can't understand, they just won't fucking fit.
Back in the late 80s, we drew a suspected homicide at this apartment building. Real pile of shit. Neighbors had complained about a smell coming from one of the units, so some officers went to check it out. Ends up we get called. The girl was found wrapped completely in dental floss.
What?
I mean, each of her fingers and toes were individually wrapped, as were each of her limbs and her torso and her ears and the rest of her head. And then another layer went over everything. It was wrapped so none of her skin was visible.
That's just time-consuming.
Can you imagine that? How long that must have taken? There were no weave patterns either. They just wrapped it around once, then continued with each new wraparound touching the one before it.
That's expensive.
That's why I use the little floss picks. Can't
Right.
do this with the floss picks.
Can't get picked.
How much floss you think that took? Hundreds of rolls, if not more? Thousands, maybe? Never seen anything like that, but that one time.
I mean, obviously your suspect is a dentist.
We need to look up every dentist in the area.
Every
See what sick
fucked up dentist
motherfucker
in the-
doesn't have any more floss. Anyways, they identified the girl. She was some kid, 17 years old she was, from a couple states over. If I remember right, her name was, what was it? Kelly! That's it. Kelly.
Kelly.
Now, the guy who lived in the apartment hadn't been seen around the building for a few days. We talked to the neighbors, people that lived on the same floor, a few others, maybe. Apparently this guy, his name was Lucas. He kept to himself, that Luke. We went to talk to the neighbors. None of them knew his name, and a few of them, they'd go, "Oh, you mean the guy from, whatever unit he was in, 512, I think, whatever it was. Guy's an asshole," or something to that effect. He never talked to nobody. Never nodded in the halls. Nothing. He lived in the building 6 years, but for about the last 10 months or so, no one'd seen him. His rent was paid by check through the mail, and he had his mail forwarded to a P.O. box. So the scene. His apartment was dark. We'd shown up there in the morning around 9 a.m., but his apartment made it feel like it was midnight. He painted the windows black, same with the walls, but on the walls were, you know, those cliche ransom letters where all the words are made up of different letters cut out of magazines. I see some right here in the studio.
In the studio, mine says, "Hungry? You ready for the dick?"
It's in here. Time is now.
Yeah, it's good.
It was that. It was exactly that letter. But over every inch of every black wall in the place. The messages were, let's say, disturbing. I don't remember what it all said verbatim, but they were just these long, sort of vague confessions. It's almost the end. He's coming for me. Please stop.
I like Ike.
Is Chicago deep dish a casserole? That type of stuff. It was a 2-bedroom apartment, and floor to ceiling, wall to wall, was just hundreds and thousands of magazine letters making words that formed this guy's pleas for help. Fingerprint folks came in and did their thing. Like I said, this guy lived alone. Never had a noise complaint. No one ever saw him with anyone else. Neighbors in the next units over and across the hall never heard a peep from his apartment. Not even a TV or radio. But somehow, there were no less than, 90-some odd different fingerprints all over his house?
Oh, shit.
Goddamn. Weirder than that is that all the fingerprints were all carefully placed. Like one person went up to a table, wall, refrigerator, door, whatever. They placed their thumb down. Then another person came up, placed their finger down, and so on and so forth. The entire apartment, every surface had these fingerprints, intricately placed, evenly placed. We found out that the only ones they identified, 2 sets of fingerprints. One belonging to Lucas and another to a woman who had died in West Virginia in the early 60s. A few years before she was born. He was born. Yeesh. So the girl that was found dead in the apartment, she had no connection to Lucas that anyone could find. She also had no fingerprints on her. But it didn't look like anyone had intentionally wiped her down. They said she'd been dead about a week, and that the cause of death was, get this, suffocation by dental floss. And in the course of the autopsy, they found that a few of her organs were also wrapped in floss the same way her body was. Her heart, liver, a lung, her kidneys, her spleen, all wrapped up in dental floss. I like how he says, a lung. Oh,
Yeah.
where's the other one? And her stomach was bursting at the seams with it, just like her esophagus. Ooh, fuck. Anyways, we had our suspect, this Lucas guy. We started digging, looking for associates, places he spent time, things like that. Pretty soon we found out he did some of the off-the-books work at a landscaping company. Guy there tells us he hasn't been to work in 3 days and that he figured he'd quit. We pulled a few more threats, but nothing seemed to pan out. It looked like this guy killed Kelly and then went off the grid. Then about a week and a half after we got the case, we put Lucas's picture everywhere. And if I'm not mistaken, the higher-ups told us all to tell everyone it was for a robbery. Why? We started getting calls from different businesses saying Lucas had come in. Stopped for gas, got a burger at McDonald's, picked up shampoo at a grocery store, all these menial tasks. Probably 15 different things. Problem was, he apparently did all these things at locations that span the whole city. And he did them all at the same damn time. 10:48 a.m. Something like that. All the security cameras footage matched up, his credit card records matched up, all the purchases happened at the exact same time, and I'll be damned if it wasn't him at the locations. Not lookalikes, but him. Now, a lot of this stuff I'm telling you, it's weird. Yeah. When it all happened, that's really all it was. It was just weird. Odd. It was never really all that scary. Some things were, of course, but generally it was just stuff that boggled my mind. When we watched those security tapes, though, it's hard to explain it. Me, Manth, and anyone who was in the room at the times we watched these tapes, every time. I think there was 11 places we had to watch the tapes, and every time he'd stand for a few seconds, 5 to 10 seconds, and he would just stare at the camera, stone-faced. And it was like he was looking into my soul. I can only describe how it felt for me, but I know for a fact the others felt the same way. It felt like someone was squeezing their fist around my heart. The breath left me. I started sweating. It was the worst fear, pure terror. 2 of the security guards had to leave the room, as did Where Am I? One started hyperventilating.
He was right the fuck out of there.
Another threw up. It only lasted as long as he was looking straight at the camera. When he'd look away, everyone would breathe a sigh of relief. It was, anyways, Manth. He came to me the last day of us going over the security cameras, and he told me he had something. Son of a bitch had gone over the pictures from the apartment, all of the magazine letters, and he found a pattern. There were certain letters that were written in a particular font. He put those through a cipher. What do you call it? Caesarean shift. If you moved the letters around, I don't remember how many, 4 or 5, something, it made a name that kept repeating. It was the longest of long shots, but we started to look into Bruce Hiller. Turns out Bruce Hiller was another apartment over, in town, near our own. We talked to the people there. They tell us he's the nicest guy in the world. They don't see him much, but whenever they do, he's polite, conversational, real good guy. His apartment is immaculate. I mean, it looked like we went over the entire place with a Q-tip every day, every hour. The building itself was, it was decent, kind of run down, but his place, for what it was spotless. We go through everything, and pretty soon it's time to go check the basement storage unit. The way they were set up was the way they were just partitioned off with little wooden and wire doors. You could see into everything. In Lucas, or Bruce's, whatever his damn name was, in his, it was packed floor to ceiling with stuff on either side of the floor. But we could see through the door. And there he was, towards the back of the unit with his back to us, reaching up onto a shelf. We could barely see him, just kind of making out his silhouette. The only lights down there were single bulbs hanging from the ceiling with pull strings. We shine our lights in his unit, pull our weapons, tell him to turn around slowly and keep his hands up. He doesn't move. He just stays there, reaching up on the shelf. We move forward a bit, keep telling him to turn around, show us his hands, blah blah blah. But he doesn't move an inch. The building manager had a rapport with him, apparently, so we got him and he tries pleading with him to turn around, but Lucas just kept standing there with his arms up and his back to us. Manager unlocks the door, we get him out of there. Now, this was a year or two before tasers really started to catch on, so we didn't have that option. We inch our way towards the guy, and as we get closer, it becomes clear that when I say he's not moving, I mean he's not moving. He's standing as still as a statue. Pretty soon as we realized he's not breathing. We kept our weapons up, kept our lights on him, kept yelling all that shit, did it by the book, but we got up to him and confirmed that he wasn't breathing. We call in the troops. When it was time to move the body, they had to tip him. It was like rigor mortis had set in while he was reaching up to the shelf. It was his face, though. It was the most anguished, terrified look I'd ever seen. Picture yourself screaming at the top of your lungs, and think about what your face looks like when you do that. That was his face. We asked the people who lived above his storage unit if they'd heard anything. Of course they hadn't. When Mant saw the guy, it did something to him. I mean, I saw Lucas's face. It scared the Christ out of me. No ways about it. Gave me that same feeling as when we watched the security tapes. But Manth, the guy never said another word. Ever. Never spoke to me, his wife, his kids. Never said another word as far as I know. Last I heard, he was living in an old folks' home. Poor son of a bitch just looks out the window all day. That was some years ago, though. Oh, for his sakes, he's dead. Terrible as it sounds. They did an autopsy, and, well, it was something with his heart. Blood pressure, something. But what it came down to was that he was literally scared to death. I didn't think it was real, but they assured us it was the only explanation. That was it. He died. Never found anything else on his connection to the girl, why he had an alias, why he had a second apartment, nothing. We did find what the tip of his finger was touching when he was reaching up on the shelf, though. There was a ball of dental floss, maybe the size of, I don't know, a racquetball. You know, one of those bouncy blue ones. Got a call a day or two later. They told us that inside that ball of floss, 7 human teeth. As far as I know, none of them have ever been identified.
Huh.
They keep going into like the time travel well, but with a whole bunch of gross shit.
Well, for me, this one rings true to an earlier, much earlier creepypasta story I read with Gestalt in the previous, I want to say, first 100 episodes, something before the 80s, I believe. Gas station story about, really cool little twist, too. Dude keeps reviewing footage, seeing one of his coworkers come in when he's on shift. Won't pick up the call, won't come in. Coworker always comes in, looks at the camera, and takes something just from the store and leaves. Okay. Dude works the shift. Never remembers seeing the coworker come in. Coworker's been stealing shit, so naturally the boss is asking him to stay and work the shift and then watch the tapes afterwards, keep him up to date about what's going on. starts to get more creepy. The coworker starts to come in and take more and more shit and always kind of linger in front of the camera a little bit more. It gets to this point where, a few tapes down the line, the person, as he's watching the tape, is like losing time and like reporting back to the boss and being like, weird shit is going on, call me back. And the story ends with him like repeating like, weird shit is going on, call me back, weird shit is going on, call me back, weird shit is going on, call me back, and then the story just like ends.
Oh.
So he like gets brought into the loop of this guy showing up and taking shit, and I don't know if he's stealing the time from him or if he's just manipulating time and he's fucking around with them, but it ends on this really creepy note of like being trapped in that kind of sequence just from being witness to it. So always kind of stuck with me a little bit. That was one of the more fun and creepy ones from the first 100 episodes.
Record scratch. You're wondering how I got here.
Yeah, pretty much. I guess you're wondering how I got here.
I guess you're wondering how I got here.
I like this. I think there's an abject part of my perfectionism and my need to comprehend that is saying, man, if this dude just keeps telling cop-out stories, I'm going to start getting pissed off at how I can't actually rationalize what's going on. But there is something interesting about it. Like,
all of his partners end up fucked up. That's interesting to me, too.
Yeah.
Why is he okay?
I mean, I don't think he is. I think that's why he's telling these stories. But, there's, I already made the joke about the stairs in the woods and how some things just haven't been described and, we'll never get answers and that's just how it is. But, there are some things I could say like, oh, well, that's just, the horrifying aspect about that is that you can't comprehend it and that's just the end of that and that's what it is. And, there are certain things that I give that away to, like when I watch Jeepers Creepers, I'm like, what the fuck is going on with that room? How long has this guy been doing this? What the fuck is he? The questions don't have answers. I just enjoy the terrifying aspect of that. And that's just, that's just what it is. I read the search and rescue stories. I find out about the stairs. I accept right there and then that I'm not going to get an answer to what is going on here, and I conceptually just tell myself that stairs take you from one plane to another, and these stairs function between planes. So who's to say what's going to happen the minute you touch them, the minute you go up them, whatever. And that's how I kind of rationalize not knowing anything about them. When it comes to weird procedural cases like this, where someone's job is literally to try and figure out what's going on, it would make me just want to quit. I'm like, nah, I'm going into like, I don't know, I'm gonna go into the service industry. Like I'm gonna become a plumber or a fireman or something, because this is too much for me. I love being like a civil servant. I love contributing to society. I like helping people, but like the dead bodies that I can't explain, the horrifying things that haunt me in my dreams, like, too much.
This next case, I'm not done with this one.
Right.
I'm not done.
The unfinished business.
Yeah.
The unfinished business aspect would really start to fucking eke away at my soul a little bit. Anyway,
Rockefeller drowned. It's okay.
We don't have to talk about Rockefeller.
Rockefeller drowned.
My grandpa, a retired homicide detective, just told me the single worst thing he saw in his career.
Oh, it's the worst now. The other two.
I was, I read that wrong. I was 19.
No,
or
I was 93.
Gotta get my grandpa voice. It was, 1993, I think.
It was all a dream.
After a while, these things, start to blend together. Dates, names, I'm an old man now, that doesn't help, but I remember the important things. I don't know if it's just that I have a good memory or if these things were burnt into my mind. Well, no matter. Oh man, I should have had Wilbur read these stories with me.
No.
Fuck yeah, Wilbur. R.I.P.
What a good guy.
I remember, like, one of my last memories of Wilbur is he was saying hi to the ladies that sometimes walk our neighborhood, and they're older women, like, you know, probably in between their 50s, 60s, whatever. But Wilbur was like 97, you know? And he's just like, he looks at me after saying hi to them, after watching them jog away, and he's just like, you see the milkers on those? He's just like, he's like, hey, he was Polish. Never mind. I gotta change up his voice. You see the milkers on that one?
Ooh. I'm talking drugs here.
You see the milk tanks on that one? I fucking loved him.
God damn
He was hilarious. We drew a body in a department store, Kohl's department store. You know, the one right up there on North Ave. Well, this one started off weird right off the bat. Someone placed the call for the body about 2 in the afternoon. This is a department store that opened at 9 in the morning, 8, whenever, but it had been open, people walking around the place for hours. So we think, okay, maybe the body was hidden somewhere in the building. Nope. The body was right inside the main entrance of the place, right by the first checkout. Someone must have dropped the body there and took off, right? What? These are all things we're thinking on the drive over. The body was posed. There was no way someone had been in a rush when they did it, and there's no way that people just didn't notice it, but there's no way someone didn't notice someone doing it. It would have been impossible to miss. Did I mention it was a kid? Yeah. He was maybe 10, 11 years old. The pose was... Remember we watched The Exorcist when the girl comes down the stairs bent over backward, walking on her hands and feet? That's how this boy was. But, you know, not moving. His back was arched, stomach face up, just looking up at us upside down. His face, just pain. Just pure pain. All he had on was a pair of white briefs, this kid. God.
My grandpa was visibly distraught.
So we get there, and the first thing we ask is, well, what'd the guy look like? Someone had to seen him, but no. No one could recall seeing anything, not even the lady who'd been standing at the register that this poor kid was posed in front of not 10 feet away. Now, it's weird enough, you know, the way the body is positioned. The position is weird enough, so we think rigor must have set in. The forensic folks get over there, they take pictures, all that, then... Christ, then they, you know, they get ready to lay the body out and take a closer look at him, and as soon as the forensics guy, Benny, I remember his name was, as soon as Benny lays a finger on him, and I mean the moment, the second, the microsecond, the exact instance his finger touches the kid's shoulder, the body just instantly crumpled like a deflated balloon. I feel bad saying it, but that poor kid, it was just a puddle of a person. A puddle of skin. We find out later that the kid's bones, they were dust.
No,
I don't mean like figuratively either. I mean his bones were ground to a fine powder. The only mark on his body was a handprint around his neck, and the cause of death was determined to be strangulation. Christ. He was a goddamn kid. So anyways, we had our work cut out for us. This was a case where there were 40, 50, 60 fucking witnesses. We checked the security cameras and it was the most bizarre, surreal thing. The whole thing was caught on tape at about 10:30 that morning. A person wearing all black who kept his head down the whole time, we couldn't see his face, came in holding the kid's hand. They went over to where the body was found, and the kid gets into the position we found him. The guy chokes the kid for about 40 seconds, killing him, and people are just walking on by, walking around them, looking at them, but ignoring what's happened. The lady at the counter looked over a few times, didn't do a damn thing, just kept checking people out, doing her job. The guy finishes choking the kid, stands up, and then the son of a bitch bows. And that's the part that really got me. People in the store gave him a round of applause. And then he just left.
It's like an episode of Impractical Joker.
Yeah, right. What was Sal? You gotta strangle this kid, and you gotta leave him in the. You gotta leave him in the. In the
damn!
coals.
How am I gonna do this one?
I don't know if I'm ready to do that. I don't know if I can do that. Murray's over there, like, I'll do it.
Brink.
I'll kill the kid.
Murray passed the test.
Son of a bitch. Q's in the corner. What the fuck is happening? Fuck. We were fuming. I remember I yelled at some of the employees and people that were in the store when we got there. What the hell were you doing just standing there? What the hell's the matter with you, you sons of bitches? You know?
You know.
But not a one of them couldn't really explain their reaction to what happened. They said they remember seeing a guy, the kid, what happened, all of it. But it didn't feel like anything wrong was going on. They said they all saw it, but instead of being like, what the hell, it was like, it was a normal thing.
What the hell?
What the hell? What the hell? What's going on over there?
Why is he Donald Duck?
We asked everyone what the guy had looked like, and they were all 100% sure in the descriptions they gave of the guy's face. But what the witnesses gave us, the guy was either white, black, Hispanic, or Asian, with brown, black, blonde, red, or gray hair, blue, green, or brown eyes, perfectly smooth or extremely wrinkled skin, a big or small nose, and he had a picture-perfect set of pearly whites. Or he had a mouth that looked like he ate nothing but junk food and rocks and hadn't brushed a day in his life. It didn't make any sense. And if everyone, having no real idea what they saw, none of this, what they gave us was help at all. Remember, I said the body was called in around 2 in the afternoon? Yeah, that means people were coming in and just ignoring, not realizing, I don't know, whatever the hell was happening, but no one did anything about the body for almost 4 hours. We went to listen to the 911 call, and we found out that it came from the payphone right across the street from the Coles at the McDonald's there. There used to be a payphone. Now, I heard a gravelly, deep voice, but Olson, he heard someone more high-pitched. It doesn't really matter. Just another weird thing about this. Operator goes, 911, yada, yada, yada. Guy says, did anyone call yet? Operator goes, I'm sorry? Did anyone call about the body yet? What body? Guy gets all frustrated, starts huffing and puffing, goes, there's a body at Coles, North Avenue, do your fucking job, your goddamn job, whatever he said. Then he goes, I don't have all day. We end up looking at the security tapes from the McDonald's there, and right after the guy did what he did to the boy, he walked over to the McDonald's and sat at one of the tables outside and just sat there, staring at the Coles, just waiting. Didn't budge an inch from about 10:35 until he called around 2, just sat there like a statue, staring. Then he got up and made the call, and after he hung up, we stood at the payphone, not moving, watching the Coles from there, watched the black and whites show up, watched us show up. Then finally around 4, he just left. took off down the street. This was one where we really didn't find anything. Never found out who the boy was. No one ever reported him missing. Certainly never found the guy that killed him. Get this, though. A whole mess of people that were in the store when he did what he did, they ended up killing themselves. 6, 7 of them in months immediately following that day. Then I found out when the case was reopened, the guy who took it over, a young guy named Smith, he went to re-interview some of the witnesses, and 16 more had committed suicide. Guy didn't just kill the boy. Whatever he did, whatever he was, he took a whole lot more people with him. That boy, though, I'll never get that sight out of my eyes. The way he was posed, I thank God I never saw anything like that again. Some of the other cases might have affected me more overall, but that was a sight that was the one. Still love Exorcist, though. Great movie. Great film.
What about the new Exorcist?
If they ever make a sequel to that, if they ever make not a sequel, I know there are several sequels to the original, they all fucking suck. No, the third one's okay. But if they ever make, like a spiritual successor from a different studio, where it's more about, it's like 2 girls this time instead of 1. And then, Africa.
Now, I got to ask, is lima bean soup a soup or a casserole?
You know what? I think I'm going to take one out of Where Am I's book and I'm going to leave.
Take the can cuts off, please.
No, you're staying.
My grandpa,
like you said, you're stuck here.
My grandpa's a retired homicide detective. Wanted to share another one of his cases to celebrate Halloween.
Oh, nice and spooky.
Apologies for the delay. When I posted the last 3 entries...
No, I'm going to read this.
My grandpa...
Apologies for the delay. When I posted the last 3 entries, my grandpa was elated. We spent so much time going over the comments, and it brought him a joy I haven't seen in a long time. His health took a brief turn for the worse in the recent weeks, and he made me a promise not to post any more transcriptions of our conversations without him being able to sit down with me and watch the comments roll in. I've kept that promise. Luckily, he's back to where he was when we started this whole thing, which still isn't great, but it's better than he was recently, and I'm proud to present the 4th impossible case.
Now, see, when these comments come in, I'm gonna need some nice lighting.
I'm gonna need some time to myself.
Some oil.
I'm gonna need you to help me take my pants off.
He's 97.
Around the ankles, shoes still on, socks pulled up tight.
I don't want this. It's not always people, The impossible ones weren't limited to just people.
You definitely gotta read louder than that.
See, it's not always just the coloreds. It's not always just the children.
I found a hamster this one time.
It was fucked up.
It was real fun. That stays with me. They turned that hamster into a container for Tic Tacs.
Oh.
It was the orange kind. Still
nice.
Really good.
Delicious.
Tasty. Hamster dead. Tic Tacs good.
Hamster Tic Tacs, the way Mama used to make it. It's not always people, the impossible ones.
I got that part.
They weren't limited to just people. Back in the late 80s, early 90s maybe, we caught a call. A suspected murder had taken place. Mail had filled up the mailbox. Eventually, someone called the police for a wellness check. Some uniforms go to check, look through the window, and they see the blood on the living room carpet and ceiling. They go in, clear the house. We get called. I remember the phone call. It was the same as the calls for the impossible cases.
Yeah. Grandpa's name. It's another one.
I love Grandpa's name.
Grandpa's name.
We could always tell how shitty our day was going to be by the tone of the voice of whoever called us.
Oh, fuck, get on down here. It's real fucked up.
It was me and a temporary partner I had. This guy, Malloy.
Oi, Malloy.
He'd come over from across the state, but like every detective, he was familiar with the impossible ones. Though he said at his last shop, they were referred to as the unexplained.
I like that.
Different name, but the same mind-boggling bullshit. Anyways, we pull up to the house and find everyone standing outside it. We get out of the car thinking they're just trying to preserve the scene, but then we see that everyone is on real edge. Jumping when we shut our doors, staring at the ground, just acting real antsy. We ask them what's going on, but no one will say a word. We go around asking if the house has been cleared, and finally a uniformed, look like his first day on the job, nods his head a little bit. Malloy and I go in the house, and it looks normal. Just a normal suburban house. There was a stain on the living room carpet, and it was very clearly blood. It was made all the more obvious by the fact that there was blood dripping from the ceiling. You ever see a ceiling with flood damage? Where it looks like dropping a feather on it from the other side is going to make it come crashing down? That's how the spot above the stain was. It was dark red and looked thin as wet tissue. So, obviously, we think there must be a body upstairs. Based on the call we got and how the folks outside were acting, we were expecting something real, something real gruesome. We go upstairs, figure out which room the stain is below, and when we walk in, there's nothing. Room is normal. Not 2 seconds after we open that door, that's when we first hear it.
Tap, 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 tap.
The best way I can describe it is like they taped their pinky, then a half second later their ring finger, then middle index thumb, boom, 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 real fast.
Pinky, ring finger, 1, 2, 3. Pinky, ring finger, 1, 2, 3. Pinky, ring finger, 1, 2, 3. Interesting.
Malloy and I both spin around. It sounded like someone was tapping on the wall in the room across the hall from the one we were in. Now, the door to that room is closed. We'd been informed that this woman lived by herself, didn't have any kids, no husband, not even any family that lived in the state, so there shouldn't be anyone else there. Malloy and I draw our weapons, start doing the whole open the door, show us your hands, yada 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 thing. But no one responds. We stand there long enough with our weapons pointed at the wall. I was pointing at the door. Malloy had his trained on the wall. We stand there long enough and don't hear anything back that we start wondering if we just heard something from outside or something. The unis had cleared the house, and they never done us wrong before, but with how weird they were acting, we wanted to be sure. Just as I start to take a step to pass Malloy and move toward the other room, we hear it again. Tap, 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 tap. Only this time, it sounded like it was in the room on the other side of the wall from the one we were in. On the same side of the wall, just a door down. I yell out, "Police! Step out into the hall with your hands up!" And again, no response. Tap, 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 tap. This one comes from the opposite wall, from the previous one, which would put whoever was doing it on the steps leading upstairs. Malloy was still standing in the doorway, so he took a step and leaned over to take a look, and then looked over to me and shook his head. There wasn't anyone there. The next set of taps, that same pattern, they came from above us, like in the attic. Then higher up on the wall by the stairs, then down the hall, then from underneath my feet like someone was tapping on the ceiling in the living room, then back on the wall in the opposite room. Over and over and over and over and over and over. It sounded like a miniature stampede was happening all around us. It lasted about 30 seconds. Then as quickly as it started, it just stopped. Malloy and I stood there for a good 10 minutes, guns up, arms aching, wondering what the hell was going on, when we both finally calmed down enough to act rationally. We went through and cleared the house again, attic, top floor, ground floor, basement. We did it ourselves just to make sure it got done thoroughly, and there was no one. House was empty, except for us. So when we have to deal with the fact that the ceiling in the living room is leaking blood, but there doesn't seem to be a source, the bedroom where the leak should have been, where the body should have been, there was a throw rug in there, over the hardwood floor, so we moved the rug. There's a door type thing. I guess you call it a door in the floor, maybe the size of a pack of cigarettes, with a hinge that's flush with the door. I opened it, shine a flashlight in, but there's nothing there. No source of where the blood could be coming from. And even after we had some guys come in and take out the floorboards, I took out the insulation and it was dry. The material that made up the ceiling, while it was soaked with blood on the bottom of it, it was completely dry on top. Which, it's impossible. It's like the source of the blood was in between a half-inch thick piece of plaster. That was a hell of a long day, I'll tell you. So it's late now, probably 2:30 in the morning. Malloy and I are still at the house looking around. Finally got a few people to come in, fingerprint folks, photographers, they're getting their jobs done. Me and Malloy are standing in the kitchen when he goes, "Did you hear that?" I hadn't heard a thing. He goes, "There it is again." I'm straining my ears trying to hear what he's hearing. And when I turn to look at him and ask what he thinks he's hearing, I won't lie to you, my heart skipped a beat. Malloy was standing there, staring straight into my eyes, but it was like he was looking through me. His face had gone completely limp, slack, and his eyes looked like they'd been turned off, like there was no life behind them. His mouth hung open like he was just totally brain dead. "Malloy?" I say. He just stared through me, to the point that I looked over my shoulder to make sure no one was behind me. When I turned round back, Malloy was pointing to the basement door. I looked over and saw that it was closed. Then I looked back again. Malloy was pointing, but the life had returned to his face. He looked normal. I asked Malloy what the hell had happened, and he just said, "You didn't hear that?" I told him I hadn't. He said we needed to check the basement again. We head over and open the door. Now the lights wouldn't turn on. They worked fine the other day, but all of a sudden now, nothing. We get our flashlights out and head down. I asked him why we were checking the basement again, but he just kept saying, "We need to check the basement again. You didn't hear that?" We get down there and everything looks the same as it had all day. The taps sounds like they were against one of the metal racks that line the basement walls. We shine our lights all around. There's nothing. No one. This time it sounds like it's on a cardboard box. "You didn't hear that?" Malloy says again. The tapping starts all around us. It's on metal, cardboard, plastic, wood, drywall, plaster. It just gets to the point that it's deafening. I shine my light all around and eventually it lands on Malloy, who at some point moved to the corner. He had that same dead look on his face again. He was pointing towards the ceiling, just above me. I consider myself something of a brave man, but in that moment I was about as scared as I could have been. I did not want to look behind me. It felt like something was there, looking at me, waiting for me to turn around. "You didn't hear that?" Malloy said again. "You didn't hear that? You didn't hear that? You didn't hear that? You didn't hear that? You didn't hear that?" He just kept repeating it, over and over. Then he started slurring his words, like he'd sound as if he was drunk. I'm yelling out at him to shut his mouth, scared out of my mind. And so there's always been a lot of this, that makes you scratch your head, say what the hell. But then
I can tell my grandpa's reliving this in his head.
I worked up enough courage to turn around. Malloy was still repeating that over and over, but I turned around and looked up towards where he was pointing, and there was a spot of the plaster in the basement ceiling that was newer than the rest of it. The same size as that little door in the floor on the second floor. We've been through the house more times than I can remember, and neither of us had noticed that door until now, which seemed unlikely. The tapping seems to be getting louder, faster, I got Malloy yelling over and over, and I'm so afraid. I think I might piss myself. It gets so loud that I cover my ears, start hunching over. I mean, it sounded like you could have heard it on the other side of the neighborhood. Then it all stopped again. I look over to Malloy and saw him sobbing into his hands. Then he walked up the basement stairs without saying a word. I waited to get the hell out of there, but at the same time, I didn't want to skip on my duties. I yelled up the stairs for a few of the construction guys to come down and take down the entire piece of plaster that the spot was on. They unscrewed the screws, and when one side of the piece was lower than the others, a little bag slides out and falls onto the ground. The bag had fingers in it. 3 fingers. If I remember right, it was an index, a ring, and a pinky finger. We eventually went back upstairs, and when we did, there were spots like the one in the basement all over the place. The ceiling in the living room had stopped bleeding, but now we had more of these spots. Must have been 5 or 6 on each level of the house. Inside each were bags of fingers, from pinky to thumb. We had them all tested, and as far as we could tell, at least some of them belonged to previous owners of the house, going back decades. Turns out that everyone who'd lived in that house had died. One of them was a suicide, but the rest were natural causes. It was odd, because all the fingers were in perfect condition, like they'd just been removed from the body and decomp hadn't started yet. Doesn't make any goddamn sense. Malloy, that poor bastard. He quit the job the following day, refused to talk about what was going on in his head during that day. Tried committing suicide twice that I know of. Now he lives with his daughter in Monterey, California. In the few years after that day, I tried to check in on him from time to time, and he would apparently have all these fits where he just screams, "You didn't hear that?" over and over. I was supposed to go back to that house a few days later. I showed up, and when I got to the front door, I just couldn't do it. The fear set in again. It made me feel like I was gonna pass out. I knew right from the jump this one didn't have an answer. I still did my due diligence, did what I could to find some answers, but I refused to go back in that house. Oh, and the one who lived there, a neighbor down the street had seen her walking the morning we got the call. So several days after she'd stopped getting her mail for whatever reason, even though she was apparently home, she walked down the street and onto the main road. We tracked her security tapes, but she turned the corner from North Avenue onto 92nd Street, and then just vanished. Poof, into thin air. Wondered for a long time what happened to her. Then one day, almost 7 years later, we got a tape in the mail. It had been sent to the precinct addressed to both me and Malloy. It was a security tape from a gas station. The timestamp was the day after we'd been to her house. So the day after she'd vanished, about 2 hours after, across the street from the gas station, some folks were doing some tree work. The woman had walked up to the area these folks were doing the work, set her purse down with her ID on top of it, leaned forward, and went headfirst into a wood chipper. Messed up, right? Well, even more messed up than that. The tape came from a gas station in Florida, about 1,200 miles. Never did figure out how she got from the corner of 92nd and north to Tampa Bay, Florida in just under 2 hours.
A couple days later, I went back to my grandpa's and he got me immediately excited for his next case.
You know, I should probably tell you about the first impossible case I ever had.
And?
Scene.
And that is where we are going to end the first episode.
That was like a nice mix of some Edgar Poe and some fucking... I got the feeling of like Blair Witch there too, with the whole corner thing.
Yeah, the time displacement stuff keeps coming back, and then the spatial reasoning not making sense, and blood where it doesn't make sense, noise where it doesn't make sense coming from, sounds like it's just like it takes a concept of the previous story, reworks it and puts it into a new story, and then dogpiles on top of it with a new concept. So it's like, first one, just...
The guy's making a box.
Just...
Nobody make no sense. Time's weird.
Can't find girl talking.
It shows up in different years. Same
Time
age.
displacement, temporal displacement. Next one, dental floss, unexplained, in bodies, perfectly fine. Next one, dude comes in, does wonderful magic trick for Coles. Wonderful presentation, asks for an applause, doesn't fucking get it.
Gives everybody cold bucks.
Fucks off to film Mind Freak down the street. And then this last one, it's just like voices, creepy house,
Tap, tap.
and then the temporal
Cellar
placement
door.
again at the end. Like it didn't have temporal displacement at first, like just some shit that didn't make sense, creepy house, and then they just had to go in there and say, oh yeah, by the way, the woman who lived there, she traveled 6 states in 2 hours and killed herself. Like,
That wood chipper was
I don't know, like,
perfectly.
you know the feeling that I'm getting? When you read the last, like, 2 pages of the jaunt, and that kid just goes nuts talking about, like, it's a long time. You know, it's a long time. You're awake for a long time. You know, like, when you get put through the door, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, like, when he gets put through the door, he's just like, a long time. Like, how long have you been awake? Like, a long time. Like, what you see in the darkness between spaces, if you were to teleport, you know, like, if that were to exist, that type of madness is just absorbed, reflected. And it's almost like all of these people tapped into that sense of temporal dysfunction and each had a twist on it. Dad ends up in a box, mom ends up dead under a table, daughter disappears never to be found again, all to come back years later, bodies missing from the grave, dad is in the urn, new set of skin. You know, next one, dental floss covering bodies, dental floss inside the bodies, dude on footage at 6 different places all at the same time.
Damn time.
Found frozen horror, you know, days later.
Got a little dental floss with some teeth in
Fucking
it.
Chris Angel performing in the Coles, goes across the street, just fucking stands there. The kid's body experiences a type of temporal thing. The people experience a type of temporal thing because they don't remember acting the way they did on the footage.
But they all killed themselves.
Dude is at the store or at the McDonald's, fucking Egg McMuffin, McDouble in hand.
Nobody's giving a shit about my work.
Waiting to get his fucking standing O, and doesn't get it, says, I'm going to go to the Burger King down the street. Fuck off to Macy's. Do it again there in 2 hours. This last one, woman disappears, house is fucked up, anyone who's been there has lost their fingers to the house. House decides to just bleed and let those fingers loose for some reason. Just unexplained.
Fingers everywhere.
Unexplained phenomena.
These little baggies.
It's interesting. I don't think it's possible for me to be disappointed because I never know where the story is going to go, and I'm always just kind of left going, huh. But, like...
Yeah. I feel like it's not going to have, like, a solid ending. It's just
Of course
gonna be
it's
more
not.
Stories.
Of course
It
it's
sucks.
not.
But, hey, it's cool.
Of course it's not. But it's...
It's a nice mix of gore and intrigue.
Yeah, Twilight Zone level shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay with Twilight Zone level shit. It means that someone sat down and said, you know, it would be fucked up, and then they just wrote it. And, like, that's cool, because that's a good place to, like, start and end a concept. Outside of the overarching context of the detective story, which I find interesting. I mean, in what other situations are you going to come across these stories? You know, it's the same person, the person who wrote Search and Rescue was like, I really want to write a story about mutant stairs that defy all types of laws, but what context do I write that in? And then they say, I guess I could write some Slender Man stories and some monster stories and just overwrap with a dude who walks through the woods a lot. And it's like, oh, well, there are people to walk through the woods a lot who are paid to do that. So I'm gonna objectify that opinion and that context through the eyes of the people who are stuck doing that. And that's easy. You can kind of scapegoat any sort of activity to provide the point of view for the story. And I think, I don't know, if you want to tell some X-Files stories, you know, you're kind of pigeonholed into telling certain types of stories. You know, that's all I got to say. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's great. I don't think, you know, it's as fun to me as that gas station story I read with Gestalt, you know, where, you know, like I literally said what happened and then it happened in another episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, another story that this guy told. Like, you know, when you witness madness, it rubs off on you. You become a little bit mad. In retrospect, I'm surprised to see Grandpa's still fucking in one piece.
That's
you know?
what I want to see.
And that's probably where we're going.
I want to see.
That's probably where we're going.
Who is he actually speaking to?
Well, no,
Is it his grandson?
I just think at the end he's just going to be like, well, it's time for me to go. Gun, how's this gun taste? And then just, you know.
No, Daddy, no!
I just think that that's what's going to happen. I think he's ultimately just going to be like, well, I've said my piece. Now you have all these questions. I don't have answers. Bye-bye.
Now, Junior,
Barrel click.
when you order a pizza in Chicago,
God damn it.
I'm going to need you to tell me.
I'm going to need you to call up my partner Olson and his twins.
How many fucking partners has this guy been through? in his
27 years,
27
probably
years
a
of
lot.
experience.
Probably a lot.
At least he explained that.
Especially if some of them are quitting their job after these stories are told. Well, there goes another one.
Seems like you can't keep a partner there, bud.
I guess I'll need to put out the new hire sign.
I like how Grandpa's name is redacted.
I mean...
Can't even give us a fake name for Gramps.
I know, right? Old Curly. You know? It was the 20s. You were allowed to have a dumbass name.
I
like
love
that.
cheesy puffs, so they called me Old Curly.
Old
'Cause I
Curly.
ate those cheese curls.
My dick has the curvature to match the circumference of the earth. And they thought it would be funny to name me Old Curly.
That's why there's the flat earthers out there. Because my dick is flat.
Your dick is flat?
Goodbye!
Flat, or do you mean to say straight?
No.
I like that you're just like flat. Like, could you imagine
It's been through a lot.
flattest dick to ever exist?
There's no organs in there. It's just flat. It's just there.
My dick is so flat.
I hook it up to one of those old like bike pumps.
Yeah.
Just to get
Well,
some
the Austin
inflation
Power,
back
the
in
Austin
there.
Power pump with the book that says, "I promise,
Oh,
I promise this experience" by Austin Powers. I didn't write that, Vanessa. You gotta believe me. We're gonna leave this here for now,
just leave it
and
there.
we're gonna, you know, you won't have to wait too long. You'll literally just have to wait another 2 weeks.
I
and we'll,
can't wait.
And we'll tell the other half of these stories. And maybe we'll talk about another terrible movie we've seen, you know?
What movie do you want to watch?
You gotta save that for next time.
I want to watch Blood Harvest.
I want to watch Demon win.
But I only want to watch it on a video game.
Yeah,
Neat.
it's a deep cut.
Alright,
Like a deep dish pizza.
I'm gonna go get my casserole.
So that answers it.
Is it?